Hi, I'm Rob Hartnett, and each month on the Art of the Possible podcast, we aim to inspire, entertain, and educate you in the areas of leadership and leading a life full of possibility. We speak with people who inspire by their actions and their attitudes, and cover a wide range of personal and business topics that are relevant for today. Please connect with us on Facebook at Art of the Possible Podcast and on Instagram at artofthepossible.podcast. Now, on to the episode. Hi, it's Rob Hartnett. Welcome, Possibility Seekers, to the Art of the Possible Podcast. Today we're talking with sales performance expert Rich Blakeman about his inspirational book and bestseller, I might add, The Hybrid Sales Channel. Rich has written this book that's a must-read for anybody who's looking to distribute product, especially IT&T product, through distribution partners. Let's get into it. Rich, tell us, what was the inspiration for The Hybrid Sales Channel?
Well, it was really pretty simple, Rob. Falls into two categories. The first category is I've spent my life both on the direct sales as well as on the indirect sales side of the business. And from the internal side of the world, I've lived through years and years and years of, let's call it, irritation between the two sides of the world.
Sometimes conflict.
Some people might call it conflict.
Yeah.
Created by overlap in the selling motion.
Right.
And not having a nice, smooth definition through the selling motion. And none of us have a lot of extra resources today. And none of our clients have extra resources today to achieve growth. So on one side, from an internal, purely selfish for our clients trying to drive growth, how do you drive growth? By reducing duplication of effort in the selling motion. But the true driver is on the customer side of the equation. And that's the difference between how companies want to buy compared to how the vendor wants to sell.
Right.
And we've got way too much time spent in designing routes to market and elaborate schemes as to match up how to cover our white space and what we're going to do to get great coverage of the market, regardless of whether we can or can't reduce duplication. If we can't match up how the customer buys with how we sell, we might as well not start the journey.
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it, that all the time we've seen this focus on the buyer or the customer at the core, but really organisations haven't really bought the religion, have they? They haven't really done that.
It's good lip service. It's how many times you say, I'm a customer-centric company. Great, show me.
Right.
The way you show me is, show me how your customers prefer to buy. It's a question I ask a sales leader every day. So tell me, where did your revenue come from last year? By different methods that your customers buy from you.
Yeah.
How was that different than how you planned it to happen? And why? Yeah. And in what direction is that trending? And that starts to get underneath the reality of, are you selling in the way the customer wants to buy? And then in talking about a hybrid between the direct and the indirect channel, how do you take and match up your resources in a way so that you don't duplicate what one person has a unique strength to do with someone else who has a unique strength to do something else doing the same things?
Yeah, I see a lot of that. I think that's a really great point. Did you see a lot of the direct teams, for example, going in and doing something, the channel members doing something, and in fact they're not even communicating.
They don't even know that they're doing it.
Left hand, right hand.
Yeah.
And what you're saying in the hybrid model is let's actually not stop doing direct. Let's not do indirect either, but let's work together. Let's work out where each of us has an advantage and actually work together whenever the customer needs it. So you're looking at it from the customer's perspective first and saying, how does the customer buy? How does the customer want to buy? How do they want to do business with us? And at that point, which one works?
Well, in many cases, Rob, it starts out with, how is the customer already doing business with us?
Yeah.
Because I can count on both hands and more the number of times a client has told me that they go out to call on their customer with the sales rep from their company, and the customer says, well, it's really interesting, you brought out Rob today and introduced Rob as the sales rep. Let me introduce you to Betty, because Betty is my channel partner who represents your company. I've been buying from Betty for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great story. We just had one just the other week back in Australia. A client just do the old voice of the customer.
Yeah.
In fact, one customer did the voice of the customer. In fact, wrote back to the vendor organisation and said, "Well, I've answered as best I could, but in fact, if you really wanted to know all about me and my direction and what I think, you could have spoken to my channel partner, who represents your products and services, and they would have taken half the time to actually do that."
Right.
So it's clear, isn't it? Sometimes customers are so passionate about that, they actually took time out of their day to say, you know what, this person over here is already doing a great job and it's already handled.
And that's the key to growth that we've built in the book into a systematic method that says if you take in any number of metrics the unique strengths of members of an indirect team and the unique strengths of the members of a direct team, and put them in a planned motion to how the customer wants to buy and manage it rather than having it happen by default and argue over it, then you can actually produce more results with less resource and grow with the same resource you have rather than having to either add channel partners and wait a long time for them to get to revenue, or add direct headcount, and none of our clients are in the mood right now to add a bunch of direct headcount to get the growth number.
Yeah. Tell me, Rich, with the book, who's the ideal audience for this? Who do you really want to read this?
At the top of the food chain is the head of all sales, the place where all revenue funnels up to. Because if all revenue comes in through whatever approach the client takes to the front door of the business, all of that revenue collects someplace. That's the person who cares most about how do we then choose how we go to market based on that. So that's the first point. It's hard to get traction from the bottom up in this kind of initiative because this is, as you would say in Australia, these are really hard yards that you've got to go after to do the work to make this kind of change if you're going to do territory planning in this way. And this really is, it's a change in territory planning, not a change in selling methodology. It's not a change in how you hold a conversation with your client. It's how you plan your work effort and then how you execute it. Very different.
Yeah, I think as I've read the book, it's very much also around the why before the what. And I think that's what you were getting at there. So what are the keys to success? So if you do have a sales leader, say a sales and marketing leader who can do that, well, what are the first steps they should do to implement a hybrid sales channel?
So 2 or 3 things that fall at the top of the list. The first one is you really have to understand within your own business, is there a business case for this kind of change in your business or isn't there? Because if you're going to go through the effort, it needs to be worth it. And in some industries, there's more case for change than in other industries. And so you need to take that down to your business, your markets, what you understand about it. Once you've got a business case for change, you talked about it earlier in terms of alignment, there's got to be some vertical alignment amongst all of the leadership. And at the top, there's got to be some horizontal alignment amongst leadership that says, using a Cortez analogy, we're going to burn the boats. Right? We're going to get to the other side. We're going to burn the boats. We're not going back. And if you don't have the case for change financially, then you can't get the alignment. And then the third step is go and list all of the first line managers and go and list the owners of the partner firms. Now, the owners aren't going to do the work, but they're going to have a change to their business model because their salespeople are going to all of a sudden be side by side with your direct salespeople rather than feeling like they're in competition with your direct salespeople. That's going to be a change of mindset for the owners of your partner firms. So the first line managers on the direct team and the owners of the partners have to be in the game before you can really then start to bubble it up from the bottom.
And that's going to be a unique, isn't it? I mean, many organisations haven't even done that, even haven't had their the owners of those channel partners come together.
No.
So that's going to be a big step change for a lot of people.
Right, and sometimes it's coming together and sort of getting them to understand it as a group, and sometimes it's selling them on one at a time.
Right.
Just depends on the nature of what their channel structure looks like.
Yeah, so I guess depending on how well your communications, that process might take a little longer for some organisations, might be quite short for others.
And it depends on the relationships that you have with the owners versus the relationships you have with their sales manager or their tech support manager, whoever that might be.
Right. And with the book and some of the speaking you've been doing, you've spoken in Europe, you've been through North America with it. What's been the feedback so far?
Feedback's been outstanding. I'm a little bit embarrassed by some of it. As you know, I live in Denver, Colorado, and I had a young woman contact me through LinkedIn, and she said, "I just finished reading your book. Here's where I am in the industry. Here's what I do. I didn't know you lived in Denver. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you." So it was kind of a book groupie, Rob.
Right.
And I've never had a book groupie before, and so I met her for coffee, and we talked about how it could fit in their company.
Yeah.
On the other side, I was just with a client this week that 3 people had read the book, and they passed it on to 3 others, and they passed it on to 3 others. I'll be at their business up in Northern California next Monday, and they're asking themselves all the right questions. It's not that they've said, aha, this is for us. They've said to themselves, this is causing us to ask questions we've never asked ourselves before, which is exactly the point of the book.
And it's also at the right level, because they're
Right.
asking questions rather than saying, how can we implement straight away, or
Right.
what workshop do we run
Right.
next?
This is all about, this book is disturbing. It
Yeah.
concerns us. We need to think about it more. We want to talk about it more.
Right.
So if that's the kind of reactions we get, there is no one cookie cutter approach to how this works.
Yeah.
In an industry, in a business, in a segment or a size, everyone's going to be different.
Yeah.
But what we need is the reaction of people who are passionate about the change. And if they're passionate enough about the change, then we're passionate enough about helping them make it.
Fantastic. And I think that if you can do that and be disruptive is one of the big words and buzzwords at the moment, but it is actually disruptive when you're a sales and marketing leader to think about different ways you can go and do it. Well, you're in a great place. You're at the Sunset Marquee. If you've got groupies, this is going to be great for you.
I heard a few of them by the pool when I came in. I'd prefer we just go join them.
I think we should do that. Thanks, Rich, for your time.
Rob, thanks for asking me.
Okay,
and
cheers.
thanks to Cecil B. DeMille.
Hey, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and rate the podcast you listen to so we can continue to serve and inspire others. Remember, connect to us on all the social media channels. The Art of the Possible podcast is hosted by me, Rob Hartnett, and produced by Finn Hartnett. Connect with us directly on LinkedIn, Rob-Hartnett, Hartnett, and Finn Hartnett.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.